Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool little watch for you. It is from Tisell, and the last Tisell I reviewed, I think, was a very controversial review. I think a lot of people thought I was kind of hard on it, although I did do a follow-up. I don't know if everybody watched it, where I kind of compared it to the Sea Viper from Ticino, and I think it was probably a little bit more level versus coming off as nitpicky as the first one was. Needless to say, the brand did impress me with what they could offer at such a low price point. So today I have an update from Tisell. They actually have this great new model that we're reviewing here today. So a little bit about the brand. Tisell's out of South Korea. They're a micro brand that produces pretty high quality, high value watches based on classic designs. From Bauhaus dress watches to Flieger watches to Submariner style divers. Now this particular watch, of course, is one of those sub style divers, and generally when you're looking at a dive watch, there are some key common characteristics and design language you want to look for. Of course, you're going to want something that's water resistant, normally through some type of screw down crown. You want something that's tough, legible, with a dime time bezel, and if you have a bracelet, it is definitely nice to have a diver's extension. Now, this particular model is being dubbed the Vintage Sub, although it also is the Submersible, so it's kind of like the Marine Diver before it was kind of dubbed the Tisell Sub. This one is actually branded the Submersible, but many are calling it the Vintage Sub. Now, this is kind of a high value vintage meets modern Sub Homage, which is pretty cool. It has that iconic red line text that you see there on the dial, which definitely adds to it. And of course, there are some other choices also that I think make this piece stand out from the regular model, and also from other Sub Homages that are out there, and just generally other dive watchers in this dive watches in this price range. Now, the price on this hasn't changed. It's still $220 direct from Tisell. And that is something, they're pretty tough to find online. So normally what you have to do is you have to email directly and kind of get on a wait list, or order directly through the email versus going to one of the online shops that carry it. So let's go ahead and zoom out and take a closer look at what makes this update so special. So let's get it to focus there. As you can see, well, first of all, this does come on a bracelet that was very similar to the last one I had. It was actually slightly better quality. I don't know if they made any improvements on it, but the clasp was much better as far as the way the glide lock worked. I just prefer it on strap. The end links were still similar to the way they were before, with the T-shape end link that I feel like kind of jotted out a bit too much, but the overall quality, I could already see improvements since the last batch, so that's definitely nice to see. I have it here on this nice Blue Shark quick change strap, so it's a two-piece NATO. If you guys saw my review of these, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go ahead and check the history for that. Now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about really what makes this watch different. Now, it still has those very classic, Submariner dimensions. As you can see, it has the 40 millimeters diameter, but one of the big changes is now you can see it has that really cool kind of vintage domed sapphire. I mean, it's not the biggest dome, it's not quite a box dome. It's not quite a big, huge bubble dome, but it's somewhere in between a double dome and a box dome, and I think it looks really, really nice. And it does give you a little bit of play and distortion, but at the same time, still keeps things rather legible. Now, another thing you might have noticed here is that the ceramic insert is brushed, which is really a nice touch. You really don't see that, and I think it was a really cool way for them to kind of give this a more sedate look and make it a little bit less blingy. So I would like to see more companies do that. I think probably the only other company I can think of that does a brushed ceramic bezel off the top of my head is Oris. So really nice that you can also get that here in a $200 watch. And then of course, as you can see on that sapphire crystal there's great AR coating. And then looking at the dial, you notice it doesn't have applied indices here. They went for the more classic look with the printed indices, but instead of using BGW9, they use C3, so this thing glows. Not that BGW9 is a slouch by any means, but C3 is definitely king of the hill when it comes to output and staying power. And I think the aesthetic wise, it really works with this piece because it's trying to have that kind of old school look to it. And you can see the dial there is a matte black dial, but it has this very slight sunbrush finish to it that you almost don't see unless it's really in direct light. But one of the nice things is the combination of that sunbrush finish, the very fine sunbrush pattern with this crystal really makes for some very cool and playful things happen in the light, as you can see. So the bezel is 120 clicks. Pretty nice action. Can't really complain. Nice and notchy, but still smooth enough to use. A little bit of play, I think you can still get there. But nothing crazy. It definitely, when you have it on bracelet, the end links are actually butted up so tightly against it that against the bezel that I found that it was much harder to turn when you had the bracelet on. But when you have it on a strap, you definitely notice that it's much better, more free flow action on there, which is very nice. So still very standard on the case back. As far as the movement goes, it is the Miyota 9015. This actually might be the 90, I want to say OS or 05 model. Basically, it's just the one without the date. Don't quote me on that, but it's one or the other. But basically, it's still that Miyota hacking hand windable 4 hertz movement. Really nice modern movement that has become very popular with micro brands, while ETA has kind of gone back and forth on whether or not they're going to keep supplying or not. So let's go ahead and get this on wrist and take a look at how this rides. So as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, this really, I think, wears very icely. So of course up close it's going to look a little bit big, but it does have the more modern lugs, as far as paying homage to the Submariner. It definitely has the wider lugs, which gives it more of a modern kind of sporty feel. It gives you a little bit more wrist presence, definitely. And I think it really goes so well on here. And one of the nice things about having it here on the 2-piece NATO strap, this style, is because those, just like the real Sub, the spring bars are very close to the case, so it's very hard to have a quality NATO go in there, because normally the more quality NATOs are going to be a little bit thicker. So if they're thicker, then they're not going to fit through that space. So, but I think this thing rides really well. Of course it would, being that it has the silhouette of a Sub. And the general look, this is clearly an homage, but I think that they did their job and actually changed some things up and, kind of made it a unique choice. It's kind of a blend of old and new, and that's something that's really popular right now. There's a lot of brands that are charging a lot more money to kind of do something like this, and then there's even modding houses that will take a real, $8,000 modern Sub, tear it to shreds and rework it and try to make it look vintage, and then sell it to you for 25K markup. So to have something like this, I think, is definitely a nice alternative to kind of damaging, or harming just a defenseless Submariner. So I think, options like this, the Jeanneau Ocean Rover, of course, that tie back to that vintage aesthetic, while giving you something that's robust and modern and you don't have to babysit, is definitely nice. And this offers you, a cool choice at a much lower threshold. So it's a $200 watch, 220 bucks. So, I'm going to do my best to not be as harsh as I was on the Marine Diver, aka Tisell sub that came before it that I reviewed, because, at the end of the day, this is just, it's not really in competition with watches that are much more expensive. So it's a little unfair to compare. But with that said, let's go ahead and get this going as far as Lume. So we'll zoom in here. Oh, too close. All right. Nice and tight. We'll charge it up so you guys can see it in all of its majesty. All right, so as you can see, the C3 Lume is very bright, and it definitely has more of that initial burst that you'll find versus the BGW9, which is going to have a softer blue tone, isn't going to have that same kind of initial brightness, although it does hold its charge really well. The C3 definitely, because it does just take a brighter charge when it holds it. Of course, it holds it longer. Now, something new that that I started is I figured, why not get some low light video of this piece? So as you can see here, this is what you're going to see when you're kind of transitioning from a dark space to a light space while wearing this watch. And I think it's a really cool looking piece. So there you go. Get some nice low light shots of it. Get you kind of a better idea, because we do have pretty harsh studio lights on in here. Oh, let me pop this back on. Okay. So just to give you an idea of what this will look like, and kind of more neutral lights, and seeing that, that great C3 Lume kind of transition between the light and the dark. Pretty cool, I think. Really, it's just a great looking watch, and yeah, I expect it to look good. It looks like one of the best looking watches in history, which is the Rolex Sub. So there's that, right? So this is an homage watch, or homage watch, and it's paying tribute. No, it's not the same way it is with the car industry. I've heard some comparisons. Nobody calls it an homage car. It's just a replica, right? Well, there's some pretty expensive replica cars you can buy, right? A replica Cobra is something that is not to feel bad about having when you're spending over 50 grand on one. So it's just a completely different connotation that's tied to replica versus homage. So there's just different levels, or just different industries. So it's something I don't really nitpick about, these watches and these styles. There's plenty of mainstream brands that have done this. I mean, even back in the day when the Submariner was new, still, there was tons of watches, mainstream and whatnot, that did that, and there's still watches that watch brands that still do that today. It's kind of maybe how you sell the first couple of units, first couple of batches. You really come up with something that's an homage watch that is going to sell. You try to make it look very much like a very desirable piece that already exists, but you sell it for less. People start trusting the brand, start trusting the quality, and then it enables you to start kind of branching out on your own and creating some more original pieces. So, who knows if that's the path that they're on, but I can see that they're definitely starting to bring some more original style to it, and taking some liberties with the aesthetics, and not, just producing something that was really close to, just a copy with some different text on the dial. So I have to applaud Tisell, and you know, and stepping their game up a little bit, and you know, providing something that's really cool. This is a really popular space right now. You know, of course there's a bunch of Steinhardts that are out there that have been capitalizing on this aesthetic for a long time, the kind of modern vintage style. So it's pretty cool to have an option that's even cheaper. And at the end of the day, you know, there are some people who would say, hey, it's an homage, it's an homage. I don't want to spend X amount of money. I don't care how nice it is. If it's something that's just meant to look like something else, I don't want to really invest in it. I think this is probably at that sweet spot. You know, if you're that type of buyer where you don't want to invest in something, you know, if it's just trying to look like something else, and you know, you're really worried about other people, oh hey, is that a sub? And then you know, you don't want to say that it's not or whatever. If you're really worried about that happening to you, this could be the watch for you because you didn't spend too much money on it. You know, I think a $200 watch, and you see that has ceramic, sapphire, you know, C3, 90-15 movement, you know, 4 hertz, hacking hand windable. It's really hard to argue with that. You know, 120 click bezel, everything works. It's not finished to the finest level, but it's you shouldn't expect that at this price point. You know, it's right up there with Seiko 5s, which people rant and rave about entry-level Seikos having such great case finishing and whatnot for the price. You know, normally people say that's where the bracelet's where it falls short. Here, the bracelet falls a little bit short, but this bracelet has solid end links, it has screw-in links, and it has, you know, a quick adjust clasp. So I think it really, just because of the design aesthetic, it's not the most original thing. You know, people are a little bit harder on it, and myself included, but that's mostly just because kind of the homage you know, game has gotten really competitive. There's been some guys that have come out with some really stellar stuff that I think stands out, and I'm seeing now just kind of in this price range, you know, that $250 and under, I'm really seeing Tisell set themselves apart at that really high value, you know, low cost option. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You know, do you have any experience with you know, other homage watches? Do you hate them, you can't stand them, and you want to tell me all about why this is a terrible video? Go ahead and do that, I guess. If you have experience with Tisell and you know it's been a good watch to you, and you know you can provide a nice little short review on there that might help another person that's kind of on the fence, then go ahead and do that. Or if you had a bad experience, share that too. So if you like this video, please do hit like if you made it this far, of course, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks guys, bye.